Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on the Big Eye Sports Podcast on USBN Sports. And as always, joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, I'll tell you what, excited for our next guest. I know you and I have knew his father real well and got to watch Matt, playing sports. And Matt was just a great athlete to watch.
Well, let me tell you something, Danny, because we always sing the praises on here, and there's no one that I'm happier to sing the praises than Matt Mullenax, because I'm going to tell you something, Danny. I'm going to say it up front here that in all the years I coached at Anderson, and I've been around Matt since he was little, there is nobody, and I know I've told Matt this on his graduation day, there's nobody that I could consider a better role model for Anderson High School, for a Redskin to be a student athlete than Matt Mullenax. And I knew that, from the minute that he went through high school and going on to college, that he was going to be very successful. So we're going to get into all that, but I'm telling you, this might be, you look up role model and his picture's going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we're said, Matt Mullenax is joining us. Matt, we really, I know you're really, really busy, and we really appreciate taking the time to join us tonight.
No, thanks so much for having me. And I hope you guys just didn't set me up for a lot of disappointment for all the listeners. So, but it's really great to be on the show, and thanks so much for having me.
No problem. So, Matt Mullenax obviously is in the Hall of Fame for football and track, and also played collegiately at Brown. And so, Matt, talk about that, just the whole growing up in Anderson and playing sports, and what was that like for you growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, obviously, I'm biased because that's the only experience I had. But, and obviously kind of going to Brown to play and kind of comparing war stories and high school football stories with a bunch of teammates, I kind of look back at those years and realize how lucky I was actually to grow up in a community that was so supportive of not only the student athletes, but the students part of the student athletes, the first part of the hyphen, but also just kind of the support from Friday nights to track meets to the whole nine. So it was just a very welcoming community and really a great place to grow up and kind of learn not only the X's and O's on the football field, on the track, on the basketball court, but also the emphasis on putting the work in during the school day as well.
Yeah, there's two things that I remember distinctly, broadcasting all these games over all the years. And, the two things that really stick out with me with you was having a 50-yard average is just amazing for kickoff. That's number one. But, Matt, I literally almost broke bones in my body on the press box. I don't remember even how far it was against Whitten Woods. You caught this long bomb, went over, and at the time, the press box didn't have a railing there. And I jumped off that thing because I started screaming and yelling. That's two things that I remember you growing up, playing football at Anderson. And talk a little bit about that. Just, the whole, the Anderson, you just talked briefly a little bit about it. Playing football at Anderson, I know for me was a very special thing, and it has to be for you too as well.
Totally. I mean, when my family moved from Columbus to Cincinnati when I was 4 years old, we moved 2 doors down from Coach Huron. Yeah. So, I grew up living for Friday nights. And I think all I did from probably the time I was in 3rd or 4th grade up basically until high school was wear spirit packs literally every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So that was a staple of the wardrobe. But yeah, I mean, it was obviously very special having my dad on the staff as well. Made Friday nights in the fall really memorable. Certainly remember that, your second story there when Shu threw me the bomb against Whitten Woods. It was the first game on the turf. Yeah. 260 cargo. What's the route? Just, tons of great memories. Amazing friendships were formed. I'm actually friends with a lot of guys we played against, Glen Estee and Turpin. And, it's always fun to kind of kick around those memories.
Hey, Matt, real quick, just on that play, I believe, wasn't that the game winner or close to that 50? Wasn't it like?
Yeah, it was like with less than a minute left. And we were down. We traded punches with Whitten Woods that entire game, and that was a really, really tough team. And I think what's fun looking back at my time at Anderson, our class, like we knew we had a pretty good class in 7th grade. So you play against the same teams, that same nucleus of skilled players, whether it's Friday nights on the football field or basketball games or track, or we'd watch them play baseball. I mean, you see the same nucleus of kids. And it was really just obviously that was a very formidable opponent for us, but we always had some battles with that team. So it was awesome to get the W.
Absolutely.
Matt, in your junior and senior year, didn't you guys only lose like one game?
we lost 4 games between my sophomore year, junior, senior year, 3 times in the first round of the playoffs, and then we lost to Mason our senior year, which
Okay.
was very disappointing. But the early playoff exits was one that certainly stung.
Yeah.
And I actually went to Brown with a kid who played fullback at Elder, who we lost to my senior year.
Right.
They went on to win the state championship. And he told us, he's like, you guys were the second best team we played in the playoffs the whole time. So
Wow.
I was like, well, that's great to hear, but we still lost in the first round. So, those are some great games though.
Well, those were, I mean, all those games were just, I mean, we all looked forward to going there, and you had such a great team, and, watching you on the kickoffs, and I think didn't you play some kickoff return team too? And I remember you running some guy down, and you were like 70 yards away, it seemed like, and you ran somebody down from behind. Were you on the kickoff return team too?
Or on kickoff return, I might have been the safety on kickoff, which is arguably the easiest position because you just avoid contact and just hope that your guys, go take care of business. But look, I mean looking back on that team, I mean there were so many good athletes on that team. There was Rob Sherman, there was Shu, Josh Weiss, Nate Mitchell, Brandon Walmsley, Phil Potter. I mean, so many guys played at the next level, and Marshall Root, just so tough. Again, just an amazing experience, and really wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, you had mentioned earlier, Matt, about growing up and your dad being on the staff. That had to be kind of a neat experience in some respects, and as much as everybody loves your dad, and I just remember a lot of times, standing down in the corner of the end zone, watching you play and following you. But whenever you do something well, and you did a lot of great things, when something good would happen, I would just instantly turn to look at your dad because he was coaching defense, and all of a sudden he would pop his head up, to watch the play to see you do something. And so he was trying to balance it out, and cheerleading, as a dad should, but also coaching the defense. So that had to be kind of a fun experience as well.
Yeah, it was. I mean, again, to your point, different sides of the ball, but it was funny. I mean, we would talk a lot before games, and then it'd be like, all right, well, I'll see you at 10 o'clock. I mean, we would exchange very few, comments over the course of the game, because we would either be, making adjustments on the sidelines when the defense was on the field, or vice versa. He did coach a few special teams, which was great because, I had the good fortune of playing a lot of special teams, but just in general, I mean, I always thought the atmosphere was super cool, getting off the bus, walking the field.
Yeah.
You think you're in high school, you're super cool. You're looking at, you're eyeing down your opponents and looking at the fans and the stands, it's just amazing experience.
Well, one thing I want to add here, and for whatever it's worth, and Danny helped me out here, is that, I know a lot of you guys, when I say you, I mean football players, because I didn't play, but I know, you need to feel something, a part of special of the 2007 team, even though you weren't playing and you weren't there. But, Danny, you've been announcing these games all these years, and the bar just kept getting raised and raised. And, especially your junior and senior year, that's what, 2003 and 2004, and that's when those guys like Daniel Rod, those guys were still ball boys.
Sure.
And so they were around that, and they fed off of you guys. And Danny, help me here. That had to account for something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I remember talking to Timmy. Timmy was the same way when he was a ball boy playing, and he thought the same thing, being around all that stuff. And it just that documentary we're doing, they talk about, all the guys talk about when they were all, like you, Matt, the same thing you said about the 7th grade, you guys all playing together. That's what a lot of these guys say. It's just a thing that Anderson football has always been there, and people still follow it to this day. Guys that have graduated, they're still checking into the games and still, unfortunately, listening to us broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of thinking back to the saying that Coach Giuliano always had plastered on our shirts every year, which was "the tradition continues," right? I mean, Anderson football has historically been, and I hope will always be, just a great community of people where, whether you graduated 2 years ago or 22 years ago, you still feel like you're a part of the team. And I remember being on the sidelines, like idolizing Joe Sherrill, and like I wanted to be like Joe Sherrill. And then in
Yeah.
turn, like when we were there, Daniel and John Brunk and Little Norwell, like all those guys were on the sideline. And then when they made their playoff run, I remember, going to the game, and like a bunch of the guys from my class were in the stands. So,
Yeah.
something to be said about kind of the experiences that are shared during your tenure and playing at Anderson. And I think it's something that never really leaves you. And I think that's why there's so much, there's so much focus, there's so much support within that community, and just a willingness and a desire to see the team and the program do well.
Yeah. It's just awesome, Matt. So going through your senior year, and obviously you're a two-sport athlete, and we're going to get into the track portion here in a minute, but talk to a little bit about how all the recruiting process went for you and how you ended up going to a big Ivy League school like Brown.
Yeah, so I actually got hurt my junior year before the season started. So I broke my collarbone before the season started, and I didn't play for the first 6 games. And typically your junior year is when you get kind of a lot of the recruiting looks. So, it was a little frustrating to kind of be, off the map, off the radar when kind of your prime time of your junior season is supposed to be happening. So that was certainly frustrating. But look, I'm even to this day, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. So over the course of my senior year, I started talking to some of the Ivy League schools and spoke to Harvard a little bit, and Yale and Dartmouth, and eventually Brown, and had the chance to visit, the campus and get to know guys on the team and the staff and whatnot over the course of my senior year and shortly thereafter. And really just kind of grew an interest and took an interest to the fact that, again, like school was very much a part of that overall recipe, but surrounded by guys who weren't there on scholarship, right? I mean, I think they were there playing football because they wanted to play football, and I think that for me was a really cool factor. But yeah, the recruiting roller coaster is exactly that. I mean, you think you might be getting an offer one place one day, and then the next day that's not the case, and maybe this place has a spot for you, and 2 weeks later that's not the case. So it was definitely a period of highs and lows, but again, I think everything happened for a reason, and I'm incredibly grateful to have spent 4 amazing years in Providence.
Yeah, well, that's incredible.
Yeah, and also we talked about not only were you a football star, but you were also a track star. And you honestly got to play for probably 2 of the living legends, the legends of Anderson High School, and Andy Wolf and Vince Soriano. Talk a little bit about, your track experience with Andy Wolf, and then also really honestly, 2 of the best coaches in Anderson High School history.
Yeah. Coach Wolf he was so instrumental in my high school career, kind of athletically and in the classroom. But, I started running track when I was in 7th grade, I believe. I'd played baseball growing up, and I think when I quit baseball, it was probably the worst day of my dad's life, because then he was forced to go spend an entire weekend to watch us run for like 24 seconds. But it was just, it was awesome. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the preparation. I loved the mental aspect. And there are few sports like track where it's very much kind of mano-a-mano, right? Like you can talk a whole bunch of smack beforehand, but until that gun goes off, then you can kind of see who's the better athlete and who's the better person. Just like on the football field, I had the opportunity to run with some absolutely amazing athletes. I mean, Dan Palazzari may be one of the fastest human beings I've ever seen in my life. He literally chased down this guy from like 80 yards behind so that we could win the regionals and the 4x4 my sophomore year, which was amazing.
Wow.
Michael Moreland, amazing athlete. Brent Wilkerson, Nick Knapmeyer, Robert Anthony. I mean, the list goes on. And, as fun as the meets were, practices were an absolute dogfight. And they're like every single rep was taken incredibly seriously. And it was really cool. What I always envisioned track as something you did in the spring when you were getting ready for football. It became my spring sport. And it was something that as soon as football ended, like I was already in track mentality. And I think, Dan, to your point, being able to spend so much time with Coach Soriano and with Coach Wolf, I think benefited me tremendously, not only on the athletic field, but thereafter as well.
Yeah.
Well, in track, Matt, you talked about Danny Palazzari and some of those other guys. Don't you guys have some records up on the record board up there for track?
We do. I know we still have the 4x400 record, and I think we still have the 4x100 record. I think Dan and I still have some at Nagel Middle School, which is hilarious.
Nice.
And some people will send me like screenshots when they're at Nagel. I'm like, hey, where are you at Nagel? But okay, that's still pretty funny.
Well, that was the first year it opened too, right?
First year it opened. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah.
no, I mean, it was a great sport, and I still love watching it. I still love again, kind of the mental challenge that goes beyond what people realize is just a 100-meter dash or 200-meter dash. So
Yeah. And you made it to the state. You made it to the state finals, and was that the 100?
no, we made it on the relay team. So we made it as actually the 4x1 and the 4x4 my sophomore year. So
Okay.
yeah, a lot of great athletes in that
Oh, I'm
on
sure.
that team.
I'm sure that's pretty wild. Pretty wild to go through all that process. So, not to jump back and forth here, Matt, but
Sure.
let's go back to Brown. And you talked about the recruiting process, but playing there, because I was lucky enough being friends with your dad. I got to see you play a couple of times, which was so cool. Saw you play in Philly and then at Providence, and it's a unique thing, playing in the Ivy League and that whole experience, and playing games at noon and stuff like that. Talk a little bit about playing at Brown, because obviously they don't get all the coverage and the everything that some of the other leagues are, but the competition looked to be just as good.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think in total there's probably somewhere between 10 and 15 guys that I played with at my time at Brown who at some point played in the NFL.
Yeah.
A few guys are still on active rosters, so pretty amazing when you think about it. But again, I mean, I think it kind of circles back to the fact that it's not scholarship football. So the guys who are out there, competing on Saturdays and practicing during the week, I mean, they're there because they want to be there, which I think is like an added element that made the historic element of Ivy League football obviously very special, but just kind of the passion, the desire behind the scenes kind of takes it to the next level. But there are certainly times when we would trot out on the field on Saturday mornings and I'd look in the stands and I was like, there were way more people at Anderson High School last night than there are right now in Brown Stadium.
Well,
so that,
yeah.
that took a little bit of getting used to, but yeah, again, 4 awesome years and a great experience.
Yeah, but how many people get to say you were, league champs, and you were league champs like 2005? Was that your freshman year?
My sophomore year.
Sophomore year.
Sophomore year. Yep.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well,
yeah.
And I'll tell you this, and Danny, this is not surprising to me just because of how long I've done that, but to understand that not only did he go to an Ivy League school and play football and all the time that goes into that, but Matt, you won a leadership award, which is absolutely no surprise, and you also had what I think was the highest GPA. And again, we're not talking about a community college here. We're talking about an Ivy League school. So just incredible and not surprising. So, I know you put a lot of hard work into that, Matt, and your nose was in the books, and you're no nonsense guy, but you have to be very proud of that, what you accomplished there.
It was awesome. I mean, look, the way I viewed that experience was, I felt very fortunate to be there, and it was an opportunity that doesn't present itself very often. So my mentality was just to try and make the most of it. And I tried to take a bunch of classes that I probably wouldn't otherwise get exposure to. I studied economics, but really kind of branched out across history fields and poli-sci classes just to kind of dip my toe in a bunch of different little pools. But again, all in all, just an amazing campus, an amazing experience, and yeah, class nerd award, me.
Pizzas there are pretty good too, Matt.
It's great. Yeah, I think you have firsthand knowledge.
Well, talking about that, academically on the academic side and everything. Now, talk, after Brown. Now, I know right now you've got a very successful business. Talk a little bit about your career path after going to Brown, and I don't want to mispronounce the name. Is it Huron? Is that the name?
Nailed it. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So quickly, kind of even leading up to this point. So I graduated in 2008, ended up moving to New York, worked for Morgan Stanley in an investment banking capacity for a little bit, ended up leaving Morgan Stanley to go to a startup called Bonobos, which became very successful and was acquired by Walmart in 2017. So spent a few years there, ended up moving to Chicago, worked for a consumer private equity firm, so an investment firm there for a number of years. and then went back to graduate school at Stanford from 2015 to 2017. So ended up launching Huron after graduation in 2017, and really been working on it ever since. But kind of the quick elevator pitch is it's a men's personal care brand. We like to say we're helping you look out for the guy in the mirror. The more fun way of saying is like, guys are idiots and they could use some help, so we're here to help.
Yes.
But it's been great. I mean, we're a super lean team, so there's only 4 of us full time. Was able to partner on the business side with a guy who spent almost 30 years developing product for Estee Lauder. So he built the entire men's Tom Ford line,
Nice.
worked on a number of different fragrances, et cetera. So he has just tremendous industry experience. And yeah, it's been a tremendous experience thus far, and we're excited about the direction we're headed in.
Yeah, you're based in New York, is that correct?
We are live from my 617 square foot 1-bedroom. Yes, in New York.
That's pretty awesome, man. That's, I know a lot of people in Anderson, follow you still, and I've seen a couple, articles here about you and everything. And, I know Steve and I, we always, talk about anybody that we, growing up or we know, and we're very proud of you and very excited in the direction you're going. And, one of the things that we always try to end this show with is talk a little bit about some fond memories that you have. We try to end, like the 3. So do you have a track memory that sticks out in your mind, a football memory, and then maybe a college memory too? Any memories that stick out to you? And it's kind of putting you on the spot there.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's going to be hard to kind of boil them down just to one. Track memory for sure. So my freshman year, we were up at the district track meet by 1 point against Turpin going into the last event, which was the 4x400 relay, and I was the anchor leg. And we ended up losing by about 5 meters, and I was like just through the roof irate for the entire week. And we switched up the order the next week going into districts, and it poured all day. And I just remember getting the baton, and I kind of like fell into second right behind this kid from Turpin, and ended up kind of passing him on the home stretch. And that was like just an amazing feeling. I like literally still replay that in my head all the time when I'm running and I'm super bored. So that was certainly one. I think on the football side, the play that you alluded to earlier, kind of the Winton Woods game. Absolutely. I remember that I had actually switched positions for that particular play. It was a special package, and the safety from Winton Woods actually got hurt earlier in the game, so they had a backup in. So we had pretty high degree of confidence that we thought this play would work. Yeah. And I remember at one point, Shu just literally unleashed this cannon of a throw, and I was running and I was so excited and running fast, and like literally the ball was just like jumping all over. I was like, you got to slow down and like figure out how to catch this ball. But that was certainly a fond memory. And I think on the college side, I mean, when we had the opportunity to win the Ivy League championship, I think that was super cool. It's 8 teams. It's guys all cut from the same cloth. It's 90% of them end up moving to New York and working in finance after. So I know so many of those guys now that I've played against. And just to be able to kind of have that experience shared across, the guys that we work so hard with alongside for years was a super cool experience.
No, that's some awesome memories. And I know, I'd have to say that Steve and I don't have nowhere near as great as memories as you have. We always take the Turpin McNick games is all we can throw out, is all we got. No, but Steve, I mean, just awesome. That we can catch up with Matt. I know he's super busy, and Matt, again, like I said, we're super proud of you, and I know everybody that's going to be watching this is going to be very excited to catch up with you, and just could not be more proud of what you've become and the man you've become, and how you represent Anderson High School. We
no question.
Appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for the time. I mean, this is a community that gave me so much. So it's always fun to, even I'm not local anymore, I'm always reading up on, the Inquirer. Inquirer still continues to show Anderson no love about game highlights and whatnot. So, it's a community I'm very proud to be an alum of, and really appreciate the support from the both of you. So thank you.
We really appreciate it, Matt. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So you've been watching This Week in Anderson. So for Steve Ellis, Matt Mullenax, and Dan Albers, we'll catch you on the next episode.